We are pleased to have all of you joining us today for our Resilient Voices Q&A with current college students managing COVID-19 transition webinar. We have an amazing group of panelists who will be sharing their experiences and what they are doing to cope and remain resilient during these challenging times. So thank you again for joining. We're excited to get this conversation started. However, before doing so, we would like to go over a few housekeeping items. We kindly ask for all participants to keep themselves muted throughout the entire webinar. If you do have questions, we highly encourage you to type your question in the chat box. Our amazing colleague, Denise Hover, will be assisting us today with technology and overseeing any questions and comments coming in. With help from Denise, we will try our very best to answer all of your questions today. I also wanted to mention that this webinar is being recorded. We will be sharing various resources and the PowerPoint slides with everyone afterwards. Okay, so let's get started with some introductions. I will start off by introducing myself. My name is Leah Segura, and I am a Senior Program Manager at TGR Foundation. I work directly with third and fourth year college students within our career development program. In addition, I also oversee our mentor program. I will now turn it over to my co-facilitator for today and my amazing colleague, Layla.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. So thank you so much, Leah, for opening us out. So my name is Layla Villacorta, and I'm a program coordinator with the TGR Foundation. And I mainly work with high school juniors and seniors in support of their college application process. But I also assist with the professional development programming and coaching on the college side as well. And I'm excited to be co-facilitating today's webinar, and and to just be part of creating this space for our students and to share their experiences and their overall courage through all of this uncertainty, which is hopefully, this webinar will hopefully just bring some light to any of you all out there, and to just get some conversations going on how we can best support each other. So that being said, like Leah said, we have a great panel of college students that have volunteered to join us today. And I will actually go ahead and have them turn on their cameras and introduce themselves, starting with Katherine. So here's myself and Leah, and then turning it over to Katherine.
Hi everyone, so my name is Katherine Rodriguez. I'm a first year college student. I actually go to UCLA. My major is psychology. Fun fact would be that I started playing soccer at the age of 7, but after college, I couldn't really play anymore because, you know, everything's overwhelming. But I actually am a first generation student, so I take, you know, fun in that and pride in that. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Katherine. So we can go ahead and have Casey introduce herself next.
Okay. I'm also like, so can you hear me? Just
Casey?
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Originally, I was
Oh, actually, your audio is going out.
going through. Okay, but my name is Casey Santiago.
Okay, I think we're having some technical audio connection with Casey right now. So we're gonna see if we can get her connected, and then maybe we can have Benjamin introduce himself in the meantime.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Benjamin St. Fort. I am a fourth year student at Northeastern University studying civil engineering. And fun fact is my favorite place that I've traveled to thus far is Barcelona. In high school, for a senior trip, we traveled to Spain and we went everywhere except for Barcelona. So last year I was fortunate where I was studying, well, not studying, working abroad. And I decided to make the trip to Barcelona and just really enjoyed the beautiful architecture and just walking the city by myself. So it was really nice.
Awesome. Thank you so much to our panelists for introducing themselves. And we can actually get started with our first set of questions. So we have some questions for the entire group. And our first question, we can actually start out with Katherine and then we can just go throughout the group. So the first one will be, use one word to describe how you are currently feeling.
I would say overwhelmed.
Sorry. I would say for me, I'm very perplexed at the moment, just trying to figure things out.
And then Casey, let's see if we can get your audio on. Okay, I think we're still trying to figure that out for Casey.
Yeah, bear with us.
Yeah, so we can actually just go over to the following question, which is actually directed to Katherine. So I'm gonna take it over to Leah to ask that one.
All right, so Katherine, I have kind of a two-part question for you. So the first part is, how has the transition to online courses been for you? And the second part of the question is, how are you kind of balancing home, work, and school?
Oh, the first one. So the transition was very like, um, I was trying to adjust. I lived on campus, so then I had to come home. And at first it's like really nice because your family's like, oh, okay, you're home, you're safe. Nevertheless, like you start to trying to balance your homework. You try to like some people do have a room. I'm fortunate enough to have my own room. So that's been a blessing in a sense because I do have my space, but then it does get kind of overwhelming being in the same four walls every day and just not being able to go out. And then so that's been, I try to stay positive, honestly. One of the things I try to tell myself is, when will we ever have this opportunity to actually study from home, to be with our families? Like the world is on pause right now. So I try to think like, this is like historic. So I just want to make sure that I stay positive and sane and just think of like the bright side. Like we get to stay home. We get to, our world is usually always on the run, on the go. And it's just a time to like reflect, meditate, just think of everything, the blessings that we do have. As it gets overwhelming being in the room or at home, but I think a lot of us will prefer being at home than in the hospital, and just having the opportunity to have our education still not being backtracked, but in still proceeding. And work. I haven't been working because my job was considered non-essential, but I do miss it. And then family, we've been united, having dinners together and just checking up with one another. So, yeah.
Thanks, Katherine. So not sure if we have Casey's audio set up, but we'll just go ahead and move forward with the questions. So I'll actually have Benjamin answer the next one. So what have you been doing to de-stress, and how do you insert positivity into your life? Oh, looks like.
Did we lose Benjamin?
I just saw him on here. Let's see.
Okay, bear with us, everyone. Technology is not being our friend today.
Oh yeah, I think he's logging back in.
Okay, well, we definitely, have been communicating with our scholars and different students in our program, including with mentors that I work with. And so we've been hearing a lot of similar feelings from students who are in the same situation. And so really they're trying to support them the best that we can. So let's go ahead. I see Casey is unmuted. So Casey, are you back with us?
I'm still here, but my my audio is still being configured.
Okay. Yeah, your
I don't
audio.
know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you perfectly clear. So I think we're getting back in business. Okay, so
Okay,
perfect. So we can hear you. This is great. So Layla, did you want to go ahead and ask Casey her question?
Yes, yeah. All right, welcome back. So we'll just get started. And Casey, so the question directed to you, we'll actually have you answer, what have you been doing to de-stress lately, and how do you insert some positivity into your life?
okay, I'm gonna try to show my face. It's probably gonna buffer, but
yes.
In terms of like de-stressing, I would say that I kind of like gone on the internet a lot. I know that's not necessarily the best thing, but I usually go on the internet to like view memes and kind of try to find an escape. So I definitely go on YouTube a lot, and I'm always following up on like the latest content that's being created, because I love to see how there's always creatives like engaging in new content, even with this whole pandemic happening. And also sometimes when I feel stressed in general, I really love to take deep breaths, because I know that personally for me, there have been some nights where I felt a bit restless and I've struggled to sleep. And when I like take a moment to stop and relax and take some deep breaths, it's really helped me to calm down and have like a more restful night's sleep. So I've kind of like engaged with my own form of meditation that's not necessarily through an app, although that's something that people could use as well. I've just kind of like used deep breathing to calm myself, and it's been really helpful. And I think for the second question, like how do I insert positivity into my life? I tend to like make a lot of jokes in general, and I really love to be goofy. So I'm always looking, I'm always reciting like Cardi B's coronavirus rap. I think it's like a coping mechanism. And I'm always kind of like valuing the time that I spend with my family as well, and understanding the importance of taking breaks, even, when I feel overwhelmed.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Casey. And that's very helpful, and hopefully we're able to implement those things into our daily lives as well. Okay, so Katherine, I have a question for you. So, I mean, despite everything going on right now, what is one good experience that you had recently?
Well, one good experience I had recently was ate dinner or lunch with my family on Sunday, and I usually work every Sunday. So having that feeling of comfort that I woke up, you know, and like I felt the food in the house and everyone got together. It just made me feel like usually like when reality is around, I usually miss out on those things, like family lunch, family dinner, and I come home really late. So I felt like, okay, this is nice. This is new. I got to enjoy my Sunday with my family. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and proceed with some of the questions that we had from the signups. We really wanted this conversation to be driven from all of you from the audience, and we wanted to answer some of the questions that you all had. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing the PowerPoint now, and we'll just highlight everyone's faces and get started with the rest of the questions. Okay. And I heard that Ben is back on, so we'll have him turn on his camera screen too. So this next question actually is, we'll have it directed to Casey. So Casey, what have you been doing? Oh wait, that one was already asked, so. The next question, actually, if Benjamin is on, we'll have Benjamin answer this one. So what skills have you gained or utilized recently, and how will they serve you when you resume classes in the fall?
Sorry, there's just been a lot happening.
Yeah, no worries. We're being flexible, and we know that the technology issues is something that a lot of students are dealing with right now. So it's kind of showcasing right now. But Ben, I can go ahead and repeat the question.
Yes.
So what skills have you gained or utilized recently, and how will they serve you when you resume classes in the fall?
I think like the biggest skill that I've gotten through this time is just like understanding different ways of communicating with people. I've been doing an internship in Maryland, which is where I currently am right now. And before this pandemic, I was like in the office. If I ever needed to speak to somebody or discuss something, I would just go to their office and talk to them. But like being home and everybody's at home, I'm learning to like call and communicate and just figure out different ways, like through emails, just like to better explain whatever I'm trying to get across. And so just a lot of that. And I think that that goes a long way because it shows that like I'm learning different ways to communicate, and that will help me that when I start back at school, I'll be able to communicate clearly all my thoughts to people because I've had all this time practicing.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben, for sharing that. Okay, so Casey, we do have a question for you now. What are some resources or support systems that your institution has put into place for you and other students on your campus?
So I would say that in terms of like the resources that my institution has been utilizing for people, I think that they've mostly, like they've encouraged professors to reach out to students who are kind of like struggling and like encourage them to speak to professors if they need help with anything. And I think for the most part, like I've also had like some programs at my campus doing like kind of like check-ins every other week. So there's always this sense of like kind of like communal identity and that we're not alone in this struggle. I also think in terms of resources, like my professors have been like really open and accommodating in general to the struggles of the pandemic and have been really understanding in particular for me, especially in terms of like internet connectivity issues. And I've tried to switch to like asynchronous classes as opposed to constantly doing synchronous courses. So it's been easier for people to connect in that way and kind of like adjust their schedule accordingly. So ultimately, those are resources that my campus has been offering.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey, for that answer. So next question. This one, we can have it directed and open to all the panelists, to all three of you. So the next one is, what should high school counselors know about your experience thus far that will help them advise your future classmates, current high school juniors and seniors and so forth? And then kind of a two-pronged question here. So what advice would you have for high school seniors currently? And let me know if you guys want me to repeat that question too. I know that was pretty long-winded. Yeah, whoever wants to start this one.
I think I could start because I'm spotlighted here, I believe. So I could just start off. I would say that in terms of like resources, so for like college seniors now, I think you especially have to think about the importance of mental health, especially. I think when going into college, we tend to forget that a lot. And this pandemic has really been a wake-up call to a lot of students, I think, about how important it is to really take time to focus on yourself. We always have goals and ambitions, and those goals and ambitions will always be there. But at the end of the day, like, if our health like really diminishes to like a really low capacity, that's something that's really difficult to rebuild, whereas our goals will always be there for us to tackle at another time. So I think like understanding the importance of mental health and also taking into account like, I guess like basic like obstacles that you will encounter. So I'm kind of like an example of this, I suppose. So like I've had issues with like internet connectivity and, you know, in terms of like trying to like accommodate how much I use the internet and how I'm connecting so that my internet bandwidth doesn't give way is something that I think that incoming students should especially consider, especially with the fact that this whole distance learning situation may continue for an indefinite period of time. I think kind of like understanding that this is the new normal and adjusting accordingly is something that high school seniors should be taking into account in the college process.
I guess I'll follow up after Casey. So I think something that high school counselors should take account as well is that everyone's circumstances at home is very different. So like some things might appear like excuses but then it's always having that like mindfulness that everyone's situation is different, which I know that everyone might know that already, but always just being open-minded to those things. Also, one thing I have been stressing for myself, and I think could be applied to everyone, is like during this time, I feel like it's really essential to build a relationship with yourself, because society is so like built on social connections and friends and, you know, like networking and everything like that. And unfortunately we're not able to do that. Nevertheless, like it's really important to just use this time to find that self-love, that independence, that ambition that you start, like especially for seniors, they're missing out on prom, on graduation, on grad night, or things like that, which could be really like, that's what they look forward to. Just imagine like starting your first semester and not ending with the fun. It's really sad. But I have a friend, she's a senior, she got accepted to really good schools, and she told me that, oh, I'm not having graduation. But I told her, those things are like, it's a big accomplishment of us, of course, but just have that reminder of that there's something beyond that. There's something beyond prom. There's something beyond graduation, which is your future, and you are finishing laying that foundation to, just lay more stairs to like college. And college is a big part of your life. Like high school now, like I'm not saying I don't care about high school, because it was really fun, it was like totally different, but it's like now it's the real world, and they're starting that. So just having those thoughts, like self-love, self-independence, kind of advocating for yourself, just reminding them that there's more to life than like the friends you met in high school, those social constructs of events that are made, and just finding that inner self of like being driven and knowing that they have people like their high school counselor and resources to look back on. So yeah.
I guess I can add on to that. I would say for me, the like biggest thing that I think counselors need to focus on is has to do with motivation. I think now it's like very much like it's harder to be motivated when you're at home, and I think that that's a big focus that counselors should look into, with using the time to like isolate and pick each like student, whatever their students may be, whether they're seniors or juniors, freshmen, whoever they may be, that they may focus on them to ensure that they're motivated through this time. As it's been said, like we don't know how long this thing is going to last and how long we're going to be social distancing and social isolating. So like getting motivated in this time is very important, and especially as you're finishing your period of high school. I know senioritis is a real thing. I definitely experienced that, and so I think it's definitely important now not to allow senioritis to like make you lose your motivation, your drive, and you just feel like you just want to stay at home. So I think like finding different ways like to set the time to like work hard to get through all the way through high school or college, whatever your phase, and then like also making sure you take time to like enjoy yourself and like enjoy life, like party, party hard. You work hard, but party harder. That way, like you'll be relaxed when you go back through it all, and you'll be like rested and ready to just move to the next phase.
Great. Thank you so much to everyone on our panel for answering that question. Hopefully our educators and counselors on here will appreciate the advice that you provided. Moving on to our next question, I think that we will ask the entire panel the same question. If you have any recommended resources that you've used recently, what are those and how have they been useful to you? What can you share with the group? Some resources that you've recently utilized.
I mean, I can go. I think for me, like a lot of the things I've been using is just making sure, since I am currently working, I know like I'll get back from work and I'll be just tired. So I ensure that like I like take time to just relax. So I've been on Netflix, Disney Plus, like whatever it is, just like watching stuff just to like ensure that it's not just work, sleep, and then continue. So like just to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of laughing every now and then. So that's what I've been doing.
Resources I have used, I have been like on YouTube looking for workout videos, like, and then the famous TikTok. I know I'm one of those. I have TikTok, and like, don't get addicted, please. It's like I'm not addicted yet, but some videos are very, not the dances, but like some are really helpful. Like they could teach you how to cook, they could teach you workouts. So I really like cooking and working out. So I kind of want to like make it my goal to like put those recipes together and actually stay consistent. I also really love shows. So I have been on Hulu and like Netflix also. I have used the resource of sleep, so naps here and there in between, because it's so tiring, like having to, because sometimes you get backtrack and I stay up at least to like catch up, but it's really unhealthy. So my advice is to create like I have to do it, so I'm kind of advising myself too, to make like a schedule and try your hardest, because that sleep is gonna really hit after. Like it's gonna just take a toll on your body, because it's been taking a toll on me. And just having a way to like be disciplined with yourself and know like, okay, this time is to like academic, personal, and then health. So yeah.
Casey, I can see you talking, but I can't, I think the audio. Can you all hear her? Okay.
Wait, can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah, we can hear. You're back on.
Okay, yeah, no, I was using the phone audio and I realized that I should be, yeah, okay, so I think I can add on to the question now. I would say that in terms of like, just to add on to what Catherine said, I think it's really important to kind of like schedule things in advance, especially because like I know like when I map things on my planner, it really helps me to see like what's coming up this week and how can I plan for it in advance. I think because it's like it gets really overwhelming and it's hard to like kind of like manage like the days. Everything kind of feels consolidated into one day. Like it feels like an endless cycle at home. So I think like just really like utilizing a planner if you don't already have one to like really map things out is very helpful to like stay in control and stay organized, especially when you feel like things are spiraling out of control. And as I mentioned before, I really have been using YouTube a lot to like as an escape, although you should really use that sparingly because sometimes like when you start streaming things, it becomes like it could become a very vicious cycle where you're like stuck in the same like show or something for like hours and you're like, I really should have stopped like an hour ago, but I didn't. So I recommend that like if you do stream something, like you should really limit yourself to like, you know, like a set amount of videos and then go back to work and then take a break and go back, as opposed to like just really getting stuck in that hole. So I think those are really two really good resources. I think like trying to find escape from all the news and kind of like distancing yourself from that as opposed to like reading it all the time is also really helpful to kind of like maintain your mental health and make sure you're staying on task and you're kind of like keeping your mental health in a stable state.
I think Casey is still going in and out, but thank you for that, Casey. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for providing those resources, everyone. So we'll have one final question. This one came from the chat box, so thank you for providing that question. The question was, would you say that college or high school was better? So just kind of thinking back, putting yourself back into high school. Catherine, this is a little bit more recently for you, and Benjamin a little bit, a couple years back for you maybe. But yeah, which one would you say was better specifically in terms of like the stress and then the education?
Okay. I guess I can go. I think high school, like, my situation was a little different. I don't know. High school wasn't like as stressful. I felt like high school there was more like I guess less accountability. Sorry, accountability on my part because I had like a lot of people who were there, just like, hey, come to class, come to school. Like there was this obligation I had to be there. I had to like go to school. If I wasn't at school, my parents would see me, and I'd have to be at school. So whereas like college, it's like nobody's really telling you like you really have to get to class, and so like you can get overwhelmed really fast if you just slightly fall behind. Whereas like in high school, if you start falling, like somebody, they'll call your parents or they'll call your family. And then with your parents just on you, you're like, okay, I got to get my act together. Otherwise I can't do this. My parents won't let me go out, all that kind of stuff. Whereas college, you could just literally fail a whole semester. And then you just be like, well, I'm sorry, all this money's gone. Like I got to figure life and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, I think more stressful just because there's less people like really right there to like push you. But then there are programs that are out there and people who are pushing you to like remind you, hey, you haven't been in class. Some professors are like that, they'll reach out, but it's just not as much the case as high school. That's what I'd say.
I guess I'll go. So since Benjamin provided that view, which I agree with, I'll provide the view of high school being better. In a sense that not being more stressful high school in a sense, because in high school you kind of have there's more accountability in the sense that most people there. I mean, for me, I had a small high school, so everyone kind of knew one another, and your GPA was like, some people really, I was one that stressed so much about it. So, and I took 5 APs my senior year, and I was just like very stressed out. Everyone thought it was fun and games, and I said, no, these classes are like my last shot at boosting my GPA, at setting myself to where I want to be. Some people in high school take their ranks very seriously. I, for once, kind of did. Well, I did. And I mean, it paid off at the end, but it kind of depends on the person as well. Teachers, you have more of a personal connection. So it's kind of like if you drift off, it's that sense of disappointment for them and for yourself. And that connection, that relationship, it could be like very strong. And that's like a very motivating factor. In college, unfortunately, you don't really have that. For me, at least, I don't. But yeah, I think high school, since everyone's familiarized with one another, it's kind of that pressure to be good, to continue being good. So, and then in college, like I had more freedom. I felt like I was a free bird when I went to college because I didn't have that freedom in high school. But it's just kind of balancing out. Each one has the pros and cons. Some people, I took it as, okay, this is my shot to get to that higher education that I'm looking forward to. So high school was really, really stressful. I cried. I'm not gonna lie, I cried in high school, and I haven't cried in college. So that's a snaps for me. But I do get stressed. But it's kind of like this is more like on you to like strive and just put your part and apply everything you used in high school in a much more applied way. So yeah.
I think I'll go, right, to kind of just like add in my perspective. I would say that if I had to go back in time and repeat high school again, I wouldn't. Like high school is like done and it's past and it's over, and I don't want to do that again. Very different from college me. Like I think going to college has really helped me to mature in ways that I didn't in high school. And especially when I was in high school, like, I agree with Katherine's sentiment. Like I used to freak out a lot about like my GPA and stuff, and I've had my share of mental breakdowns. But of course, like I've like overcame them, and I use them as like motivation for me to get to where I wanted to be. So I think that Like when I got to college, it became like a matter of trying to balance those things. So when I got to college and I started to realize that a lot of the things or the unhealthy behaviors that I did in high school weren't going to work anymore. So college helped me to like adjust my expectations. But I think ultimately like high school was easier in the sense that there was a lot of busy work, but going into college, like there's like fewer assignments, but they're worth more and they require like a greater investment of your time. So I would say that there are like pros and cons of both of them, but ultimately like I'm kind of satisfied with where I am right now. And I wouldn't necessarily want to repeat the high school experience, but there are memories that I cherish.
Great. Thank you all for sharing that. I agree. I would not want to go back to high school. So thank you, everyone. We have another question from our chat box to the entire panel as well. So I guess this is more of like a recent question. Has your college addressed any changes for the fall? So have you heard anything from your colleges that have addressed any changes coming up this fall?
I haven't heard of any changes yet personally for me. What I have read online that a lot of colleges have tried to, what's the word? Like they've tried to, I think like they're preparing for the fall, but a lot of colleges are examining the possibility of continuing distance learning into the fall. And that's like a very intimidating prospect for them because they don't want like students to drop out from class or to withdraw from classes. So that's a fear that I saw. It was an article that I read in the New York Times about it in particular. But for the fall, like it's been like really indefinite for now. Since I'm going into my senior year next year, I know that thesis course that I'm taking is trying to provide us with resources and preparing us for the fact that we may have to conduct part of our thesis or even all of our thesis remotely. So those are resources that, since everyone's kind of like in this indefinite state, no one really knows for sure what's going to happen. And I personally haven't received any official updates as of yet.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, of course. So the question is that basically, have you heard any updates or any, has your college addressed any changes for this upcoming fall?
So my college hasn't officially, there's been a lot of rumors, but nothing officially sent through email. Housing contracts have still been, sent out to be accepted or declined. They do get declined if you don't accept them. Also, there's like students are still like thinking of going back and studying and also just securing a spot just in case. But there has been a lot of rumors that, yeah, like how Casey said, that most likely it might be remote, but nothing official has been said.
I would say that's the same for me. I haven't really heard a whole lot. My school prides itself on having a lot of international students, and so I think they're being very hesitant with like making the call just because like of the effect it will have in the student population that would show up. I know previously my school was like slow in the process of like doing the measures of social distancing. I think in the beginning they asked students to just like, if they wanted to go home, they could go home. And so that like really made a lot of people confused. And then at some point they just kicked everybody off, because that's when like the CDC like made strict social distancing, and so they just kicked everyone off. And I think that that's really hurt like the school, just like how it looks with like learning and stuff. And so I think for them, they're really just waiting. But I'm sure that if one, because I go to school in Boston, I'm sure if one Boston school starts to do it, we'll all have to do it. Otherwise, we don't want to stand out. So I'm just hoping we don't have to do it so that I can have a fall semester, but we'll see.
Yeah, those are awesome responses, guys. We're getting close to the time, to the 1 hour mark. So we're going to go ahead and ask this final question. It was also asked from the chat box, and I think it's a really great question. So we'll go ahead and ask it to the panel and open it up to you all. So just thinking about your experience so far, I know that that you all have transitioned to like online courses and relied heavily on Zoom and things like that. But is there anything else that you all feel like you all need right now? Any sort of support specifically from educators, from advisors, anything that you feel like you or your classmates might be needing right now that could be useful for the audience?
I can start off with that if that's okay. I would say that in terms of resources that people would need, I know that now, especially for minority students, like there has been a rise in discrimination against those who are of Asian descent as well as those of African American descent. And I think that this is an issue that has been shown in the media but has not been fully addressed. And I think that, especially me as an Asian person, a person of Asian descent, this is something that has concerned me and my family. And although we're staying home and we are quarantined for the most part, like I am safe at home, but I think that students now kind of feel this sense of danger and almost feel targeted just on the basis of their appearance. And so I think like connecting with other students who might be going through the same struggle, or having someone to confide in, because I know especially that there have been people who have been attacked and targeted respectively for their racial identity or how they appear to be perceived racially. And so having resources to support students who feel a bit outcasted by the prospect of this virus is something that I think is really essential moving forward, and opening up the dialogue to dispel those who are ignorant about what the virus is and how it's been really impacting people who aren't really involved with the virus, you know, like its formation, and it doesn't like define who they are as a person. So I just think that's really important during this time.
I guess I'll go. So I think maybe resources that could probably help, that I would suggest, maybe like schools, either high schools, colleges might not be as willing to, because it's such so much people. But maybe like if you're using Canvas or using any form of education, just like setting a discussion box. I just thought of it right now, like setting a discussion box of whoever's comfortable to put their emails, like so students could have like a sense of collaboration, like of people going through the same subject together, or just getting to know and meet people, let's say if it's in college, or at least having that, because in high school you kind of build relations, but in college each class like is different. So having the ability to have that access would be really helpful, because I would like, you know, to meet new people and know that they're also going through the same schoolwork, the same stress that I may be going through. Another thing, maybe like an Instagram page. I help high school, like my high school, I still follow them, just having like posting positive things, or putting ideas of how to stay busy. during this quarantine, like, you know, creative ways, reaching out, just checking up on people. Like, I feel like that's always like a little, hey, how are you doing? Or just a checkup is always very, very helpful. It kind of sets that reminder that, okay, I'm in quarantine, I'm isolated, but someone remembers me. So I think that's really meaningful. I'm an emotional person, so like I'm like, oh, you know, they remembered me. I know there's a lot like higher, like maybe counselors have so much to work with, so I don't imagine like them sending each person a personal how are you, but if you can, that'll be really like I like appreciate it. What else? Maybe just checkups and yeah, just reminding them, just checking up, oh, sending reminders as emails, because some people might sleep through it or just forget or just not put in their agenda. um, Another thing, oh yes, readings. There's a lot of like resources that are not accessible. So for one of my classes, for my sociology class, my TAs were very, very understanding and actually provided the readings with a like a exclusive link. So people that couldn't access them or buy them, they had that ability, and which will be deleted after, like if people don't want that like to be out, just a way to like control and just have students also have the resources and get the full information. I think that was really helpful, like because people might stress like, how am I going to get the money to like buy these things or like read this or have the content that I need. So yeah, I think those might be helpful.
Just a second on everything that Catherine has said. I mean, honestly, I think what we need most is just community, like more community stuff, just like growing together, figuring out like how to grow as a community. But I would say like in terms of like the academics, I'm not in school right now, like per se, but like I would say it's more like removing the pressures of like grades and stuff. I think like some colleges have been doing that and like some schools, because it's very difficult for people to learn online. Not everybody is like an online learner. Not everybody goes in to their computer and starts learning things. Some people need that like direction, that presence in the school. And so I think like as like schools look for different ways to like keep motivating you to like continue to learn, but also not pressure you, because like you are at disadvantages. Everyone's at a disadvantage now. We're not all getting the message from the professor the same way. We're not all in that classroom. So I think like just figuring out different ways, and then other ways just to make people build groups and community, because now that we're isolated, now we have to find ways to just connect with one another, whether it's forced group projects or whatever it is, just so that people can get to know each other and know that they're not alone and there's other people here in this class, because you don't see your classmates mostly because you're at home. So just like figuring out ways like to do that, I think it would be helpful in these times.
That's awesome. Thank you all for just being so open and honest right now. I think you all provided some great advice, and I definitely echo everything that you all said, the community aspect. So that kind of wraps up the Q&A portion. Thank you everyone that provided questions, and thank you again for our amazing panelists who volunteered to join us today. Your answers are very appreciated, and we love you guys, and we know that you're super resilient. So I will go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint again. Okay. So just to provide some final takeaway tips and just best practices. So don't forget to practice self-care, everyone. Try scheduling breaks throughout the day and engaging in activities that you enjoy and find fun and just give you peace throughout the day. Definitely reach out to loved ones, and just in general, just take things one day at a time. These are takeaway tips that our panelists provided, and that we also have found with the other college scholars when we have connected with them have been really helpful for them. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Leah to kind of close us out.
Yeah, so we just wanted to provide additional resources for you all to have a takeaway. This is a resource list that TGR Foundation created and will hopefully be useful. And then we have some additional resources as well. So, I mean, thank you again for joining us. A big thank you to Katherine, Casey, and Benjamin. We truly appreciate your participation and for sharing your own personal experiences. Thank you to Layla for being my co-facilitator and Denise for all your assistance. And lastly, thank you, audience. You all had some amazing questions, and we appreciate your participation and your patience with us with our technology issues we were having at the beginning. We hope all the information we provided was helpful. At TGR Foundation, we will continue to share resources and continue to host webinars. We hope to see you at our next webinar on Thursday, April 30th at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It will focus on mindfulness activities for students and educators. So please continue to stay safe and healthy. We're all in this together, and I hope you all have a great afternoon/evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great night.